Thank you for the visit. PsyQ is science made simple for the rest of us. Enjoy. As reported by Collective Evolution, new science finds evidence of life after death. What happens when we die? Does consciousness cease to exist because it's a product of the brain? Or does consciousness remain because it does not require the brain to exist? We haven't had any specific tools for measuring consciousness, but that is changing. More studies are emerging every year suggesting that a person's consciousness continues when the body dies. The newest evidence comes from New York University's Logan School of Medicine. They investigated twin studies from Europe and the United States that looked at people who suffered cardiac arrest, flatlined, and then came back to life. As reported by Live Science, the brain's cerebral cortex, the thinking part of the brain, flatlines at point of death, meaning that brain waves are not detectable. The study was the largest of its kind. It involved 2,060 patients from 15 different hospitals in the United Kingdom, United States, and Austria. The study found, as have several others, that many of these patients were still aware and able to see following their biological death, but from outside their body. The portion of the study that focused on UK cases, which was conducted over a 4-year period by researchers at the University of Southampton, found that nearly 40% of people who survived described some type of awareness during the time they were pronounced clinically dead. For example, one patient, who was a 57-year-old man at the time, despite being pronounced dead and completely unconscious, with no detectable biological activity going on, recalled watching the entire process of his resuscitation. Dr. Sam Parnia, the study's lead author, states, "We know the brain can't function when the heart has stopped beating, but in this case conscious awareness appears to have continued for up to 3 minutes into the period when the heart wasn't beating, even though the brain typically shuts down within 20 to 30 seconds after the heart has stopped." The man described everything that had happened in the room, but importantly, he heard 2 bleeps from a machine that makes a noise at 3-minute intervals, so we could time how long the experience lasted for. He seemed very credible, and everything that he said had happened to him actually did happen. He went on to emphasize the significance of these results, since this phenomenon has often been associated with hallucinations or illusions. Yet we now have proof this might not be the case. Out of the approximate 2,000 cardiac arrest patients, 330 survived, and a staggering 140 of those 330 experienced some type of awareness during the time they were clinically dead. According to Live Science, Parnia and his colleagues are continuing on with their investigations into consciousness after death, including observing the brain in detail during the period of cardiac arrest, death and revival, so they can better understand how much oxygen is actually reaching the brain. Parnia says, in the same way, that a group of researchers might be studying the qualitative nature of the human experience of love. For instance, we're trying to understand the exact features that people experience when they go through death, because we understand that this is going to reflect the universal experience we're all going to have when we die. How could almost half of these patients experience awareness during death if something extraordinary weren't going on here? There are 2 possible explanations. Either they are experiencing something phenomenal, and consciousness does continue on after death, or the slight brain activity that is going on is creating the experience. The latter is harder to believe, given the fact that if there is any brain activity happening beyond our ability to detect it, it's minuscule. How could so little brain activity provide such an experience? How do we even know that there is any brain activity at all, given the fact that it cannot be measured? Remember, these people were biologically dead. The first example is more believable, particularly if we correlate these findings to others within the realms of neuroscience and quantum physics. When it comes to quantum physics, according to Eugene Wigner, it was not possible to formulate the laws of quantum mechanics in a fully consistent way without reference to consciousness. Consciousness is the backbone of physical material matter, in that consciousness is first required for the creation of physical matter, say many within the field of quantum mechanics, including the founding father of quantum mechanics, Max Planck. So, if we take a quantum perspective and lay it over the above cardiac arrest study, it suggests that physical matter is not required for consciousness to exist, and this is perhaps what these doctors, patients, and researchers have discovered. Dr. Eben Alexander is a Harvard-trained brain neurosurgeon who published a book titled Proof of Heaven, A Neurosurgeon's Journey into the Afterlife. He once believed that consciousness was a product of our biology, but that all changed when he fell into a coma for 7 days that was caused by a severe case of bacterial spinal meningitis, during which time he experienced himself outside of his body. He explained the problem of consciousness succinctly in a lecture he gave about his experience a few years ago. Paraphrasing Drive. Eben, he said, there are a lot of scientists around the world who realize that, when you start getting into the mystery of consciousness, which in essence is the only thing anyone is one of us truly knows exists, and trying to see exactly what consciousness is, it's kind of like asking a fish what water is like. They are so close to it that there's no way for them to define it. It was also encouraging to hear him mention how this type of study has been discouraged due to our tendency to view science as completely materialistic. The simple fact that consciousness itself is a non-physical thing is troubling for some scientists to consider, and as a result of it being non-material, they believe it cannot be studied by science. Some materialistically inclined scientists and philosophers refuse to acknowledge these phenomena because they are not consistent with their exclusive concept of the world. Rejection of post-materialist investigation of nature or refusal to publish strong science findings supporting a post-materialist framework are antithetical to the true spirit of science inquiry, which is that empirical data must always be adequately dealt with. Data which do not fit favored theories and beliefs cannot be dismissed. Such dismissal is ideology, not science. In closing, I want to say, science will have you to believe everything has to be testable and verifiable, yet some of the grandest lessons that science teaches us are mere theory, like for instance string theory and the Big Bang theory. Neither are testable or verifiable. That fact brings me to this question: until science proves that consciousness ends when we die, should we limit our options on their say-so? In the description below I will leave credits and references for content used in this video, and also a link to a short YouTube video that appears to offer credible evidence supporting life after death. I encourage you to read the entire article, watch the video, and then draw your own conclusions. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, share and leave your comments below. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more releases from PsyQ.